Hello and welcome to Law and Life. I'm Shashank Mishra as a host with renowned senior advocate of Supreme Court of India, Subodh Markandeji. Sir, you have stated in the last episode that you will deal with the precarious position of minorities in Pakistan separately in this episode. Sir, please you can begin with the.
Oh, yes, let me start. In understanding why special law, that is Constitution, that is Citizenship Amendment Act, uh, is confined to six minorities in three countries, it is necessary to understand the central role of Pakistan and its pernicious ideology and method of governance. For one thing, Bangladesh was also part of Pakistan till December 1971. Then Bangladesh for a very long time was under the rule of General Ziaul Haq, who seized power in a military coup, Islamized Bangladesh constitutionally and otherwise, and ruled it till his assassination. Then his wife Khalida Zia ruled Bangladesh for 10 years and carried on the pernicious legacy of her husband. Uh, so Pakistan also had stranglehold of over Afghanistan through Taliban's all these 3 decades. Even when Taliban's did not completely seize power, they were in control of half of Afghanistan. Now, coming specifically to Pakistan, as we have seen in part one of this topic, that at the time of partition in 1947, its vibrant, flourishing, and thriving minorities constituted 24.6% of the population of what is now Pakistan. That is West Pakistan before Bangladesh became a separate nation. This population dwindled to 1.6% in 1951 as per official census of Pakistan. Now, unknown to the outside world and unchecked by also by the outside world, 1947 to 1951 was a time of dreadful turmoil for the minorities of Pakistan. Uncontrolled riots, uncontrolled, uncontrolled riots, genocide is more appropriate term, started against the minorities, which drove out and wiped off the most of the minorities, especially from the western part that is now Pakistan. Uh, the The army was never called. It was called out only when the riots, spread to Muslim sects of Shias and Ahmadis, uh, putting serious question mark on the very definition of uh, the very purpose for which Pakistan was created. So when situation became so frightening that government was compelled to proclaim martial law and appoint Justice Munir Court of Inquiry. So that Court of Inquiry submitted a report 600, running into 600 pages. So uh, every single prime minister of that period and every ulema who, on being invited to testify, appeared before that Justice Munir Court of Inquiry is on record saying that Islamic Constitution of Pakistan can never grant, equal rights to non-Muslims. So that's the ideology. So the outcome is bound to be what it is today. But since its very founding, Pakistan has been in the grip of two menaces to its orphaned minority. One is frenzied frenzy of unabated and sharply escalating Islamic fundamentalism accompanied by violence and then prolonged spells of military dictatorship that made the army its real source of political power and authority, relegating all the elected governments to secondary position.
Yes, sir, we have seen the Pakistan enrollment in the Pakistan army enrollment in countries. So, what are the factors that led to the discrimination of minorities in Pakistan?
So after the minorities, dwindled to 1.6% in 1951, as far as I have been able to discern, there are three factors. First is constitution, especially chapter 3A of part 7, which as we saw in the earlier episode was not added by any process of constitutional amendment, but by the military dictator General Muhammad Zia ul Haq by his PO number 1. Now I don't know what it means. And it is still in force, not disclaimed by any successive elected National Assembly or Senate. Then second factor is the flawed judicial process, as we shall see. And third is blasphemy laws. They are very harsh. So let us see.
So, can you take them one by one?
Yes, that's better to do. So So far as the so far as Pakistan is concerned, it has seen three different constitutions which were promulgated in 1958, 1969, and 1973. Now we are only concerned with the constitution which was promulgated on 10th of April 1973 when Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was the president. It came into force on 14th of uh, August 1973. By that time, the present Pakistan had already wiped off most of its vibrant minorities from the Punjab province. Only sprinkling of about 3%, remain in Sindh and very de minimis in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Now, Chapter 3 of Part 7, it comprises of Articles 203 capital A to 203J of the Islamic Constitution, owes its existence not to any parliament clothed with the authority of amending the Constitution in accordance with Part 9 of the Constitution, that is, Articles 238 and 239 of the Constitution. They were never resorted to. This was promulgated by PO number 1 of 1980 by the military dictator, uh, which no elected government has so far, had the courage to remove or disown or dilute. Part 3A makes, elaborate provisions of the Federal Shariat Code. Article 203A, by imparting overriding effect to the provisions of Part 3A, gives death knell to such minuscule fundamental rights of the minorities as they ever existed. Article 203B contains necessary definitions relevant to Part 3A. Article 203 provides 203C provides that Federal Shariat Court will have 8 Muslim judges. That is Chief Justice, he has to be Muslim, 4 judges who have also to be Muslim, and 3 ulemas who have experience of 15 years. Article 203D provides that federal court can act suo motu or on a reference by the federal or provincial government or on a petition by a Muslim citizen to determine whether any law is repugnant to Quran or Sunnah. So, and if this federal Shariat court, comes to the conclusion that any
Yes, sir.
part is repugnant to Quran or Sunnah, and what is the extent of such repugnance, then the law has to be reenacted to bring it in comport with the Quran and Sunnah. Article 203 confers Federal Shariat Court power to regulate its own procedure, and also it provides that parties before it can be represented only by a Muslim lawyer or an alim chosen from the panel of alims maintained by the Federal Shariat Court. So this narrative shows that the Constitution of Pakistan, contains a unique feature of what may be called, Islamic review of laws of a very comprehensive nature. That is to say, it embraces all the legislations, federal and provincial, existing as well as future by two bodies, the Islamic Council and the Federal Sharia Court. So this unique feature, we should not confuse it with the power of judicial review of legislative and executive action as known to us in India.
Yes,
So
sir.
under Article 32 and 226 of the Constitution, the courts have exercised the power in such a manner that it not only protects that constitution not only protects and safeguards the vast array of fundamental rights of citizens and others, especially those belonging to minorities, but there has been a vast expansion of these rights by widening the concept of life and various liberties and rights. On the other hand, the Islamic review is a review of existing or proposed legislation on the touchstone of Quran and Sunnah. So, Islamic review in actual practice results in drastic diminution and shrinking of the content of fundamental rights or even statutory rights, like rights under Child Marriage Restraint Act 1929, uh, British time, which is still in force in Pakistan, and since Child Marriage Restraint Act of 2013, which has been enacted in 2013. So Islamic review, results in complete extinction of human rights as we understand them in the 21st century, and their effective and meaningful enforcement by the persons belonging to uh, minority communities. Now, paramountcy of Islam in both the legislation as well as judicial processes is overarching. The Constitution itself mandates that those provisions have overriding effect. The legislature made law, whether existing or proposed, is subjected to Islamic review by multiple bodies: the Islamic Council, the Federal Sharia Court, the High Courts, the Supreme Court, in which only Muslim judges, Muslim lawyers, Muslim ulemas, Muslim alims participate. And the non-Muslim cannot even petition. So, and even, there is no right, even to say that such and such law is not contrary to uh, uh, Quran, Holy Quran, or Sunnah.
Yes, sir.
So, Islamic review of law inevitably can have no other effect except to annihilate and extinguish the rights of minorities, including rights, under the laws made like Sindh uh, Child Marriage Restraint Act, rendering the remedy meaningless. There are no rights. Where is the question of any remedies? And what is overlooked is that after all, non-Muslims are not governed by Quran and Sunnah.
Yes, sir.
So this is the problem with the constitution. Now let me come to the second factor. So in the constitutional scenario which I have narrated, the legislature made laws are a charade, and barely ever, it is those are enforced. Those laws appear to have been made to create a facade that just to flaunt before the Western audiences that Pakistan's legislations are progressive and possibly notionally to meet the obligations under the international conventions. In actual practice, those laws are not enforced, they are just overlooked by the constitutional courts. So, uh, there is one more problem, lots of it. What happens is that I have no time to tell you, but every day, it's a matter of practically everyday occurrence. Minor
Yes, sir.
girls are minor minority girls are abducted and forced into uh, uh, marriage. That is, if a boy likes a girl who is beautiful, they just abduct her and get married. And when they are produced before then the plea is that she has attained the age of puberty. So according to Surah, according to Quran and Sunnah, nothing can be done because that's according to Sharia.
Yes, sir.
So these atrocities are going on there. Large, very every day. It's a day. You must have seen that on the day when that our Kartarpur, Gurdwara was inaugurated. On that day, a Sikh priest's daughter was abducted. On the day when you are solemnly, inaugurating with great fanfare the Indian citizens' entry to that Gurdwara. So just see, there I could have cited several cases. Now, what happens is that at least atrocities on Christian girls, get reported because extensive Christian media network. But similar cases on atrocities on the other minorities do not get reported. I have a study by University of Birmingham, which I will quote. So let me
Yes,
quote.
sir.
That report says high courts of Pakistan have shown lack of respect to due process. In 2012, the high-profile case of Rinkle Kumari went before the Pakistan Supreme Court. The family of Rinkle Kumari had launched a petition before the Karachi High Court, alleging that she had been abducted and forcibly converted, and that a powerful politician supported her abduction. So Rinkle Kumari's case, uh, she was never restored to her parents in spite of intervention of a senator of United States. So, but this is of the that report. Let me start with the report. The husband and friends of so this is quotation from husband of this is quotation from that report of University of Birmingham, which I'm continuing. So,
Yes, sir. Yes,
quote:
sir.
the husband and his friends insisted that she has voluntarily converted and married, despite the fact that Twinkle Kumari cried in civil court in Ghotgi and said that she wanted to go home with her parents, but she was sent to Sakkar police station and the court allowed her so-called husband, Mia Mittu, to take her home. Even though Wrinkle was supposedly sent to the shelter home after her appearance in the High Court of Sindh, where she again begged to be sent home. The staff of the shelter home were intimidated into allowing, so staff was intimidated into allowing Mithu's son to meet Wrinkle Kumari. When such, when she appeared before the Supreme Court in April 2012, the court did not take into account that her birth certificate clearly showed that she was below 16 years old and that marriage of a child is illegal. Neither counsel was allowed to cross examine the nature of conversion of the marriage. Unquote. So, this is the state of affairs. So, whenever you ask why minorities, only six minorities from three countries, then at least Pakistan is full. So, this is the now even in the event when the victim does not profess Islam, legislature made law has to withstand the onslaught of conformity with Quran and Sunnah before multiple authorities, as I have said, where only Muslim judges, Muslim ulemas decide the federal decide the fate of that case, and only Muslim lawyers and Muslim alims appear before it. And I can't petition also if I am in minority. So this is shockingly there is no provision for a representation by Muslims, non-Muslims, before the Federal Sharia Court, even to show that existing law or proposed uh, law is not in conflict with Quran or Sunnah. So, in the face of other these provisions of Pakistan's Islamic constitution, any claim of existence of any fundamental right of minorities, much less its enforceability, is a myth. It's an illusion. A very, I would say, very cruel illusion.
Of course, sir.
Now let us see. Now, feeble constitutional framework and enforcement mechanism coupled with state-protected violence or outright neglect has exterminated most of the minorities as a direct result of en masse violations of human rights of minorities, individual or collective. Just see, mass destruction, desecration, defiling, and illegal occupation of viharas, churches, gurdwaras, temples, and Jain Hindus temples and Jain temples. See, this everyone will be shocked. There was a very significant Hindu temple, built by the last Sindh king. It's of such a archaeological importance. It was being used as a toilet. So, Aga Khan Foundation and cultural section of the US Embassy proposed to rescue and renovate this for the purpose of tourism. Just see this. Then, rampant religious violence and discrimination against all these minorities, denial of recognition of their marriages. There is no way of uh, uh, registering the Hindu marriages. Then, as I pointed out, unhindered abductions, forced marriages, some conversion of minor girls happening every day with impunity, reported at the rate of 1,000 every year. So officially it is reported at 1,000 every year. But according to Mr. Lalchand Malhi, Member of Parliament of Pakistan, 90% of the cases are not even reported.
Yes, sir.
90% are not even reported. An MP is saying, I'm not saying. So most of these such forced conversions come marriages either end up in slavery or,
Yes, sir.
uh, human trafficking to destinations outside Pakistan. So this is the, according to uh, late Mrs. Asma Jahangir, the first president of Supreme Court of Pakistan Bar Association and also the first chairman of Human Rights Commission, that is first woman chairperson, uh, is on record saying that one gang rape happens every hour in Pakistan and 70% of the women in custody of Pakistan are raped. Almost all the victims belong to minority communities. So when you ask this question, why only one of the countries, Pakistan? So it is clear why. I think now it is quite clear why. And why these six minorities? Why not?
Yes, sir.
Because we must not understand, we must not overlook that, this law is based on immigration. Since the question has been raised, why not Ahmadiyyas? So Ahmadiyyas don't immigrate to
Yes, sir.
India. This is based on immigration of those minorities. These six minorities immigrate. Shias don't immigrate here. They go elsewhere or whatever. I think they go to Western countries, which is. Now let us come to the third factor, that is blasphemy laws. They are so severe on minorities that I think they deserve a separate episode and lot of research. But I will deal here only with two provisions, namely sections 295B and 295C of the Pakistan Penal Code. Offences under both these provisions are cognizable and non-bailable. They were added as part of Islamization campaign of the military dictator General Muhammad Ziaul Haq and Supreme Court of Pakistan and Peshawar High Court have had this. So I'm quoting from the Supreme Court's finding and the finding of the uh, uh, so this is what I'm finding from Peshawar High Court's and Supreme Court's findings. So this is the finding I've paraphrased, but this is the
Yes, sir.
finding. There is rampant misuse of these provisions against the minority. And most of them originate not from, mind this, they originate not from actual commission of any act of blasphemy, but from perpetrators' personal reasons.
Yes, sir.
Just mark this. And
Yes, sir.
second finding is that most cases result in mass violence, destruction of property, and murder of most of the blasphemy accused, rendering the actual result of the cases in the courts wholly irrelevant. I'm not saying Supreme Court of Pakistan has said and Peshawar High Court has said. And yet,
Yes,
no government, federal or provincial, from Pakistan's entire political spectrum, after all, they come to power at different points of time. So they have not made faintest effort to provide for protection against misuse of these two sections, which deal with, defiling of Quran, which is punishable with life imprisonment, and 295, deals with the defiling of the name of uh, the great prophet and members of his family, for which mandatorily, there is no option. Uh, Only Muslim sessions judge tries, and mandatorily the sentence is death. So, and the constitutional validity of this law has been upheld by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
yes, sir.
So, in exterminate, so there has been not just, it's not just a case of atrocities on minorities. It's a case of extermination of an estimated 5.4, no, I'm sorry, 7.5 million minorities in what is present day Pakistan. In 75 years of its existence, 7.5 million Buddhists, Christians, Hindus, Jains, Parsis, Sikhs have been wiped off. So, not slightest censure by international community, no censure by United States, United Kingdom, European Union, United Nations Human Rights Commission, Amnesty International, International Commission of Juries, or any organization. Not slightest or muffled or feeble voice of censure.
Yes, sir.
So that's it.
Thank you, sir. With with the two long videos, we will ending the on the citizenship amendment and the immigration of the citizenship from the Pakistan to India and towards the India's. Thank you, sir, for all the information you told.